Peter Obi and Kwankwaso, the alliance that could shake Nigeria in 2027 inside the NDC movement, the political calculations, the power struggle, and the questions nobody can ignore. Nigerian politics has entered another season of suspense, not the usual noisy, recycled campaign season where politicians jump from party to party and promise change every 4 years. This time, something deeper appears to be brewing beneath the surface, and at the center of it are two men whose political influence continues to dominate conversations across the country. Peter Obi and Rabiu Musa. Kwankwaso. For months, Nigerians have speculated about one question: could Obi and Kwankwaso finally unite for 2027? That speculation exploded after the emergence of the NDC, a political coalition project that has suddenly become one of the most talked about developments in Nigerian politics. To some Nigerians, this could be the coalition capable of finally challenging the dominance of the APC. To others, it is simply another elite arrangement that may collapse before the real battle even begins. But before emotions take over, before Twitter Spaces and TikTok commentators turn assumptions into facts, it is important to slow down and examine what is actually happening. What exactly is the NDC? Why did it take nearly 9 years to become reality? Why are people mentioning former Bayelsa Governor Syriac Dixon? What really happened during the May 3rd political gathering that reignited alliance rumors? What did Peter Obi actually say? What did Kwankwaso actually say? Why is that famous line, "A child of nobody can become somebody without knowing anybody," suddenly dominating political conversations again? And most importantly, can this alliance truly survive Nigeria's brutal political terrain? Or is this another coalition that will collapse under ego, ambition, and distrust? Because Nigerian politics is not won by online excitement. It is won through structure, negotiation, numbers, regional balance, elite bargaining, ground mobilization, money, loyalty networks, and cold political calculation. And that is exactly what makes the 2027 chessboard so fascinating. The NDC. What exactly is it? The NDC, now increasingly discussed in political circles, is being positioned as a coalition-driven political platform designed to create a stronger opposition force ahead of 2027. But many Nigerians still do not fully understand where it came from. Some people think it appeared overnight. Others assume it is merely another rebranded political party. The reality is more complicated. The coalition idea reportedly traces back nearly a decade. The movement spent years struggling through legal processes, registration complications, internal reorganizations, and political uncertainty before finally reaching a point of operational visibility. For 9 long years, its promoters allegedly battled bureaucratic obstacles and political resistance while attempting to establish a credible structure. That alone tells you something important about Nigerian politics. Building a political vehicle outside the traditional power establishments is extremely difficult. In Nigeria, established parties dominate through state influence, elite connections, governors' networks, funding access, and institutional familiarity. Creating an entirely new political force is like trying to build a new airline while the established airlines already control the airports, the fuel system, and the passenger routes. That is why many coalition attempts fail before they even begin. But the NDC kept pushing. And eventually, powerful political interests began paying attention. The Syriac Dixon factoroni, name that continues appearing around conversations, tied to the coalition, is Syriac Dixon. Dixon is not just another former governor floating around Abuja politics. He's considered one of the more intellectually strategic figures within the opposition ecosystem, a former governor, a senator, a lawyer, a political negotiator. Unlike many politicians who dominate through noise and populism, Dixon often operates through institutional politics and long-term positioning. His involvement, direct or indirect, immediately signaled that serious political calculations were underway. because in Nigerian politics, alliances rarely emerge by accident. Behind every public handshake, months of private conversations. Behind every smiling group photograph are difficult negotiations about power sharing, regional influence, campaign structures, and presidential calculations. That is what makes the NDC conversation important. This is not just about creating another party logo. It is about building a coalition mechanism capable of attracting dissatisfied blocs from different political camps. Why the May 3rd event changed everything. Then came the May 3rd gathering, and suddenly, what had been quiet speculation became national conversation. That ceremony was not merely symbolic. It became politically explosive because of who attended, who interacted, and what was implied. The moment Peter Obi and Rabiu Kwankwaso appeared within the same political atmosphere, Nigerians immediately began interpreting it as a signal, not confirmation, but a signal, and in politics, signals matter. Very few things happen casually at that level. Every appearance is strategic. Every speech is analyzed. Every handshake becomes headline material. The optics alone created political tension across the country. Supporters of the APC became cautious. PDP loyalists became nervous. Obedient supporters became excited. Kwankwaso loyalists became curious, because if Obi and Kwankwaso ever truly combine their political strengths, the mathematics of 2027 changes dramatically. Not automatically, but significantly. What Peter Obi actually said of the biggest problems in Nigerian political discourse is misinformation. People often quote politicians incorrectly or selectively, but what made Peter Obi's remarks during that period resonate was his continued emphasis on coalition, politics and national rescue narratives. Obi has repeatedly framed his political philosophy around competence, production, governance reform, and national rebuilding. His message continues appealing particularly to young Nigerians, urban voters, middle-class professionals, frustrated graduates, and citizens tired of traditional politics. But Obi also understands a difficult political reality. Passion alone does not win presidential elections in Nigeria. Structure matters. Regional alliances matter. Northern political relationships matter. Ground mobilization matters. And this is where coalition politics enters the picture. Obi's political rise in 2023 was historic, but it also revealed limitations. Despite massive enthusiasm, Labour Party lacked nationwide institutional strength in many areas. There were states where Obi dominated socially, but lacked deep grassroots election machinery. That experience changed the conversation around 22/7. The question is no longer simply, can Obi inspire Nigerians? Most people already know he can. The bigger question now is, can Obi build the coalition necessary to convert inspiration into victory? That is the central challenge. The Kwankwaso dimension. There is Kwankwaso, a completely different political figure with a completely different political base. Kwankwaso is not powered primarily by social media enthusiasm. His strength comes from organized grassroots structures, especially in northern Nigeria. The Kwankwaso movement is one of the most disciplined political movements in the north. Its followers are deeply loyal. Its symbolism is strong. Its identity politics are powerful. Kwankwaso understands local political mobilization in ways many urban commentators underestimate. And that is why his relevance never disappears. Even when he is not dominating national headlines, serious politicians continue taking him seriously. Because northern voting blocs remain crucial in presidential elections. You cannot casually dismiss any politician capable of commanding substantial northern loyalty. That is political suicide. The iconic line that changed political conversation came the line that exploded online. A child of nobody can become somebody without knowing anybody. That statement immediately triggered reactions because it appeared to challenge one of the most famous political slogans in recent Nigerian history. 4 years. Peter Obi supporters popularized the phrase, "A new Nigeria is possible," and another slogan emerged from the movement's populist energy. A child of nobody can become somebody without knowing anybody. That phrase symbolized anti-establishment politics. It represented merit over godfatherism, hope over elite gatekeeping, but the modified version suddenly introduced a harsher political realism. It implied something uncomfortable. In Nigerian politics, connections still matter, networks still matter, coalitions still matter, political structures still matter. You cannot become president through moral popularity alone. You need alliances. You need regional negotiations. You need institutional partnerships. You need political relationships. And that line resonated because it reflected the brutal reality of Nigerian power politics. The 2027 chessboard. Who really holds power? To understand why this alliance conversation matters, you must understand the broader 2027 chessboard. Because Nigeria's political battlefield is becoming more fragmented than ever. The APC ruling All Progressives Congress still controls enormous institutional power. And incumbency matters heavily in Nigeria. The APC possesses federal influence, second and network state, machinery, financial advantage, political patronage systems, deep grassroots penetration in multiple regions. Never underestimate incumbency. In African politics generally, and Nigeria specifically, ruling parties rarely surrender power easily. The APC also benefits from opposition fragmentation. As long as opposition forces remain divided, APC's path becomes easier. That is basic electoral mathematics. THEPDPTHEN. There is the People's Democratic Party. The PDP remains wounded, but not dead. Many analysts make the mistake of treating the PDP as politically finished. That would be foolish. The PDP still possesses old political networks, experienced operator history, voter loyalty, state-level influence, and campaign structures, but internally, the party continues battling identity crisis, leadership conflicts, and strategic confusion. One major question remains: can the PDP reinvent itself? Or will it continue bleeding influence to emerging coalitions? That uncertainty is exactly why coalition talks are intensifying. The ADC possibility, the African Democratic Congress, has also been repeatedly mentioned as a possible coalition platform. The ADC has long positioned itself as an alternative political platform capable of accommodating reformist alliances. Some analysts believe it could become a compromise vehicle if larger coalition talks intensify. Why? Because smaller parties sometimes provide neutral ground for bigger political figures who cannot easily agree on leadership within existing major parties. That is often how coalition politics works. The NDC's strategic position now enters the NDC. Its biggest advantage is not necessarily structure yet. Its biggest advantage is timing. Many Nigerians are politically homeless right now. Some are disappointed in APC governance. Some are frustrated with PDP instability. Some obedience want broader coalition strength. Some northern blocs want strategic relevance. Some elite stakeholders fear another fragmented opposition race. The NDC hopes to become the meeting point for these frustrations. But that is easier said than done. Because coalitions sound beautiful in theory. In practice, they are nightmares. Why coalitions often fail in Nigerian coalition politics usually collapses because of 5 major problems. 1. EGOTOO many presidential ambitions. Everybody wants to lead. Nobody wants to step down. 2. Regional suspicions. North versus South calculations quickly emerge. Questions begin. Who gets presidential ticket? Who gets vice presidency? Which region controls party structure? Which bloc dominates appointments? E3. Trust issues. Politicians fear betrayal. Many alliances collapse because partners secretly negotiate elsewhere simultaneously. 4. Ideological weakness. Most Nigerian parties are not deeply ideological. Coalitions are usually driven more by power calculations than policy alignment. That creates instability. 5. Structural imbalance. Some politicians bring social popularity. Others bring governors, others bring money. Others bring grassroots mobilization. Balancing all these interests becomes extremely difficult. And this leads directly to the biggest question of all: who gets the presidential ticket? The big question: Obi or Kwankwaso? This is where things become dangerous, because alliances do not usually collapse publicly. They collapse privately during ticket negotiations. Both Obi and Kwankwaso have strong reasons to believe they deserve leadership. Why Obi has a strong Kasepita, Obi arguably possesses national visibility to support a ban influence entire nation appeal middle class credibility. Momentum from 2023. Obi also performed strongly across regions many expected him to struggle in. His supporters believe he represents the strongest anti-establishment figure currently available. To many, obedience, asking Obi to step aside, would feel politically irrational. Why Kwankwaso also has a strong case, but Kwankwaso's camp sees things differently. They argue northern numbers remain decisive. Grassroots structure matters more than online popularity. Actual mobilization has established networks. Kwankwaso controls loyal northern blocks, and strategically, they are not entirely wrong. Nigerian elections are not won on Twitter. They are one polling unit by polling unit. Ward by ward. Local government by local government. That requires organization. The Obi-Kwankwaso pairing logic. Despite the tensions, many analysts continue pushing the idea of an Obi-Kwankwaso ticket. Why? Because on paper, the combination appears powerful. The South plus North equation Obi potentially brings Southeast dominant significs, Southern youth appeal, Christian voter strength, reformist branding. Kwankwaso potentially brings Northern grassroots Mochinaricano influence, Muslim Irwin support, organized political networks. Together, supporters argue they could create a formidable cross-regional coalition, especially if economic frustrations remain strong nationwide by 2027. But there is a huge problem. The challenge is simple: who becomes president and who accepts vice president? Because Nigerian politics is deeply psychological. Political stature matters, personal ambition matters, legacy matters, supporters matter. If Obi accepts vice presidency, some supporters may feel betrayed. If Kwankwaso accepts vice presidency, his loyalists may see it as political demotion. This is the central fragility problem. The Dino Malay critics have already started attacking the coalition conversation. Dino Malay has openly dismissed aspects of opposition coalition optimism in the past, arguing that political excitement online does not automatically translate into electoral victory, and whether people like Dino or not, there is truth inside that warning. Social media trends can create illusions. Political rallies can create illusions. Crowd enthusiasm can create illusions. But elections require sustained organization. That is where opposition coalitions often struggle. Dili Momodu's perspective. Momodu has also consistently argued that opposition unity is essential. APC is to face a serious challenge, but even pro-coalition voices acknowledge the same fear. Can Nigerian opposition politicians truly subordinate personal ambition for collective strategy? History says no. At least not easily. The obedient split problem. One of the most sensitive issues is the growing internal debate within the obedient movement itself. Not all Obi supporters agree on coalition politics. There are roughly three emerging camps. Camp 1. Pure Obi loyalists. These supporters believe Obi should never compromise. They argue he already won moral legitimacy. Coalition politics may dilute his message. Traditional politicians could hijack the movement. Camp 2. Strategic coalition supporters. These supporters are more pragmatic. They believe Nigeria's political structure requires alliances. Obi cannot win alone. A coalition building is political maturity. Camp 3. Distrustful activists. This group fears elite manipulation entirely. They suspect old political actors simply want to use Obi's popularity while retaining traditional power structures. This internal division matters more than many people realize, because movements fracture when expectations collide with political compromise. The fragility argument. This brings us to the strongest criticism against the proposed alliance. It may simply be too fragile to survive, and honestly, this concern is legitimate, because the coalition contains very different political cultures. Obi's political style technocratica fokusida bandrivinith heavy economically, centred Kwankwaso's political style grassroots heavy traditional structure oriented Northern Bloc politics movement discipline a local mobilization strength merging those worlds is not impossible, but it is extremely difficult, especially under Nigerian political pressure. APC's biggest advantage. Opposition confusion. APC understands this perfectly. That is why ruling parties often prefer fragmented opposition environments. When opposition parties divide votes, incumbents benefit. If Obi runs separately, if Kwankwaso runs separately, if PDP fields another strong candidate, then opposition votes scatter. That dramatically improves APC's chances. This is why coalition pressure continues growing. The northern question another major factor is northern political perception. Many northern elites remain cautious about Obi. Some concerns are ideological, some are regional, some are economic. Some are simply political propaganda. Coalition building with northern heavyweights like Kwankwaso could potentially soften those concerns, but it could also create new tensions elsewhere. Again, coalition politics is never simple. The religious equation religion also cannot be ignored. Nigeria's presidential politics still operates heavily around religious balancing. After the Muslim APC ticket controversy, many Nigerians expect future alliances to pay close attention to religious optics. Any Obi-Kwankwaso arrangement would inevitably trigger fresh conversations around Christian representation, Muslim representation, racial balance. National inclusiveness. These calculations matter enormously in Nigerian elections. Can the NDC really change Nigeria? This is the emotional heart of the conversation. Can this coalition genuinely transform Nigerian politics? Or is this another elite arrangement packaged as revolutionary change? The answer depends on several things. Can they build trust? Without trust, everything collapses. Can they agree on power sharing? This is the hardest part. Asterisk, can they create real structure? Excitement is not structure. Structure wins elections. Can they maintain ideological consistency? Or will the coalition become merely anti-APC without clear policy identity? Can they survive political attacks? Because once the coalition becomes threatening, attacks will intensify immediately. Expect propagandal sabotage, defections, media warfare, ethnic manipulation, religious manipulation. That is how Nigerian politics works. The biggest lesson from 2023, the 2023 election, permanently changed Nigerian politics in one major way. Young Nigerians realized they could significantly influence national conversations. Peter Obi's rise shattered many assumptions. It proved that non-traditional political energy could disrupt established systems. Even though Obi did not win officially, the psychological impact was enormous. The political establishment noticed. Asterisk, that is why coalition conversations matter more today than before 2023, because the old political equations are no longer fully stable. So what happens next? Several scenarios are possible. Scenario 1. Full coalition. Success Obi and Kwankwaso unite successfully. A broader opposition coalition forms. Additional political blocs join. The race becomes highly competitive against Scenario 2. Partial alliance negotiations happen, but collapse over ticket disputes. Both men run separately again. Opposition votes fragment. Scenario 3. PDP reasserts itself, reorganizes and pulls major opposition actors back into its orbit. NDC momentum weakens. Scenario 4. Entire realignment. Defections completely. reshape the political landscape before 22/7. Never underestimate Nigerian politics. Unpredictability. The most important reality at the end of the day. Politics is not Twitter. Politics is not YouTube excitement. Politics is not viral clips. Politics is power organization. And the harsh truth is this: the APC still remains the strongest institutional political machine in Nigeria right now. Any opposition force hoping to challenge it must overcome enormous structural disadvantages. That requires discipline rarely seen in Nigerian coalition politics. Final verdict: hopeful, but extremely complicated. So, where does all this leave us? Here is the balanced reality. The Kwankwaso conversation is politically significant, very significant, not because it guarantees victory, but because it represents something Nigeria has struggled to build consistently. Broad opposition negotiation framework. The NDC's emergence reflects growing dissatisfaction across multiple political camps. The May 3rd gathering showed that major political actors understand fragmentation may hand victory back to the ruling establishment. Peter Obi still possesses extraordinary public goodwill. Kwankwaso still commands serious northern political respect. Together, they potentially create one of the strongest opposition combinations Nigeria has seen in years. But potential is not victory. And symbolism is not structure. The biggest danger facing the coalition is not APC attacks. It is internal contradiction. Ambition. Distrust. Power. Sharing. Ego. Regional calculation. Supporter expectations. Those are the forces that destroy coalitions from within. The iconic line, "A child of nobody can become somebody without knowing anybody," may actually summarize the entire political moment perfectly, because it acknowledges a difficult truth. Idealism alone is not enough in Nigerian politics. Networks matter, alliances matter, negotiation matters, power relationships matter. But another question also remains: can coalition politics truly produce transformational leadership? Or does it simply reproduce the same elite bargaining system Nigerians claim they want to escape? That is the real question 2027 will answer. And until then, Nigeria's political chessboard remains wide open.